Learn the Ten Commandments by singing. Hello, I'm Steve Singleton, also known as the Greekinator, and we're going to learn the Ten Commandments not by memorizing, but by singing them. What are the Ten Commandments? You can find them in the Bible in Exodus chapter 20, verses 2 through 17, repeated 40 years later in Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 6 through 21. Before the song, I have a short explanation about the Ten Commandments. If you don't want to hear that explanation, you can skip ahead to about the 8-minute mark. Look for an open mouth. That indicates the song is about to begin. A lot of times when you see representations of the Ten Commandments, it's just the Roman numerals 1 through 5 on one tablet and 6 through 10 on another. Of course, at the time the Ten Commandments were made, there was no such thing as Roman numerals. So that's very anachronistic. Also, you may have seen tablets which show the Ten Commandments printed in English, like the one on the right here. Or people trying to be more accurate have tried to convey the idea that the Ten Commandments were written in Hebrew to begin with, and they put it in Hebrew characters. However, they use Masoretic script, and that makes it also anachronistic, just as anachronistic as the Roman numerals. If you want an authentic copy of the Ten Commandments, you probably want it to look like this, which is Hebrew written in ancient script. But here's something interesting. We can ask, was tablet 2 a carbon copy of tablet number 1? Some say yes, and here's why. The Hittites established treaties with their vassals, and that Suzerain-vassal treaty had a number of different characteristics which are very similar to the Ten Commandments. It has a prologue which gives a discussion about the relationship between the suzerain and his vassals, about all of the benefits the suzerain has given to the vassals. And then that is followed by a list of conditions by which the treaty is going to be kept by both the suzerain and by his vassals. And then, when they make 2 copies of that treaty, one copy goes into the temple of the suzerain for the god of the suzerain to protect and safeguard, and the other copy goes into the temple of the vassals for their god to safeguard. So the gods are witnesses to the treaty, and they are serving as the guarantors that the treaty is going to be kept. Now, if that is similar to God's treaty with Israel, then God summarizes the benefits that he has given to Israel in the prologue of the Ten Commandments. And then the Ten Commandments themselves are the conditions that God is requiring of Israel. And each one of them is spelled out for them. And then one copy is made for God and one copy for Israel. But there is not a separate temple, a temple of God and a temple of Israel. They're the same temple. So both copies, both tablets of stone, would have been put in the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark of the Covenant resided in the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle, and later in Solomon's and then Herod's temple, which we call the first temple and the second temple. You can decide for yourself whether this idea is valid, but it's a possibility. But all of that has only to do with the form of the Ten Commandments. What about their content? Let me ask you a question. Did obeying the law qualify people to have a relationship with God? Was God saying in the Ten Commandments, if you follow these commandments, then I will save you? No. The key verses are at the very beginning of the Ten Commandments in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. God says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. And then he goes right into the Ten Commandments. Or like Leviticus 19 verse 2 says, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. In other words, when did the saving acts take place? When did the Passover happen that got them out of Egypt, and the Red Sea that destroyed Pharaoh's army? Did it happen before the Ten Commandments or after? It was before. God already had a relationship with them. He had already taken steps to save them. While they were still sinners, we could say, God was willing to redeem them. And then he called them to a new lifestyle, a lifestyle that was characterized by serving him alone and by loving one another. The Ten Commandments, just like passages in the New Testament about how we should live, tell how redeemed people maintain the relationship they have already received from God by grace through faith. If we analyze the Ten Commandments, even briefly, we note that the first 3 commandments set us apart to serve God, and the last 6 set us apart to respect our fellow human beings. The bridge between the two is the Sabbath, which has a Godward look and a look toward other people. Looking toward God, recognizing the blessings that He's given in providing a way for people to rest, and looking toward human beings, not pushing business so hard that you run people into the ground. This is a rest not just for citizens, but also for slaves, for livestock, for everyone. And the rest, since it comes from God, engenders within the human heart a thanksgiving toward God for providing this relief from the drudgery of work that we have in this world. Then we have to ask, are the Ten Commandments binding on us today? And the answer is no. We are under the new covenant. Christ, not the law, is our life. The law was a shadow, a jail, and a pedagogue. And all of these things are looking forward to the time when the reality will replace the shadow, the person will be released from the jail, and the pedagogue will lead us to our true teacher, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. And yet, the ethics of the Ten Commandments are the same under the New Covenant, with the exception of the Sabbath. Are we supposed to keep the Sabbath today? I'm talking about no work on Saturday? No! The New Testament says in Colossians chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, the Sabbath, feast days, all of those things are a shadow of the good things that were coming, the reality of which is found in Christ. So Paul says, don't let anyone condemn you regarding the Sabbath day. Christ now stands in the place of the law. Christ Himself is our Sabbath rest, as He says in Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Christ lifts our burden. He carries our load. And the relief that people had under the first covenant because of the Sabbath, we now have multiplied manyfold because of the blessings we have in Christ. So now let's sing the Ten Commandments. And I went all through the internet trying to find songs of the Ten Commandments, and there's a whole variety of them. But the problem I have with most of them is that they introduce a whole bunch of words besides what the Ten Commandments themselves are, such as, let's get high, let's get low. To turn from God, we must be slow. That kind of thing. And it's ridiculous. You would have to be learning a bunch of extra words that are unnecessary. So I tried to find a song that was easy to remember and that just deals with what the Ten Commandments are themselves as we find them in the Scriptures. Here's the one that I found. I hope you enjoy it. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourselves an idol. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet. Remember that the whole idea of singing this song is to remember the Ten Commandments. So you need to sing it over and over and over again until you can get it. Go back in this video until you see the open mouth, and then you'll be ready to sing it over again. Or you can continue from right here. We have another open mouth. Those are the signs that the song is about to begin. Here we go. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourselves an idol. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. You shall not covet. So that's it for learning the 10 Commandments. I'm Steve Singleton. See you next time.